Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast presented by our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Be sure and check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com or visit them on Twitter at blueh2o_climate. Their January promotion is continuing on those single zone mini split units we've been talking about for a while now. Great little unit for whatever room you have in your house that, maybe struggles with staying cool or staying warm. Bonus room, garages, workshops, whatever it might be. Perfect little unit. Find out more about those at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Of course, you can book online, save money on your expenses if you need a repair or anything like that. Just check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Guys, plenty to get to in this podcast with Austin Price and Rob Lewis. Plenty of questions. We'll get to as many as we can. And let's get rolling here. We'll start out of the gate. What is the chance that the guys who entered the portal are ones who may have eligibility issues this fall? Any updates on the incoming class in that same situation? Any concern for eligibility issues from the investigation? I'll be honest with you, I haven't heard anything at this point. AP?
Yeah, me neither. I mean, listen, everybody wants to talk about Eric Gray because, he didn't play against Texas A&M. I think that was more precautionary. I think Eric Gray would be fine. And had Tennessee had a bowl game, I was told he would have been eligible to play in that. As far as Henry, good. Quavaris, good. Jameer Johnson, I can't speak on that, but I assume he would be fine. Wanye, I'm told, may have some, issues as far as just, the grade side of things. But that's just, again, that's not hearing from anybody official. That's just kind of been what's the fodder out there. So we'll see, if he's eligible wherever he trying, or he's going to Oklahoma. We'll see if he's able to get eligible at Oklahoma. So, point, nothing about like the investigation leading to people being ineligible to play.
Yeah, same here. All right. Crazy Orange Man wants to know, do you feel that Steele has the overwhelming advantage to take over since he's a UT grad and has a healthy head start on this job? Rob, I'm going to say no.
I don't feel that way. I mean, I think it's bizarre that, he's in place with a 2-year contract, but I don't think I don't feel like he's has the overwhelming advantage at all.
No, I don't think so. And as a follow-up to that, Austin, the next question is, if Steele is not the direction the athletic department decides to go for a head coach, will the new AD require the new coach to keep Steele on staff in the same role?
I don't think that it would be like if let's say Tennessee hires a new AD, that person wants to hire a set guy, and that guy goes, I don't want him on my staff. I don't think that he would be required to keep Kevin Steele. Do I think that that's, that he's likely to end up on whoever's staff? I do. I do think that he would likely end up on whoever's staff. But I'll be honest, the longer this drags on, the more I think Kevin Steele is going to like the big chair. And if you don't get the big chair, is his head mentally going to want to be, in it for the DC role? I mean, maybe it will be. But I also know that, I think he would really relish the opportunity. And it all depends on what kind of interest Tennessee has. Again, I equate this Tennessee job to some of the kids that have went into the transfer portal. They get those initial calls because they're in the portal from teams X, Y, and Z. But then once the team does some investigation into what kind of player that person is or whatever else, they don't call back. I think Tennessee's got some intrigue to it, but, when some of the bigger names that are on Tennessee's hot board take a longer look at this job, do they call back for it? That's something I can't answer. I just, again, I think that, I go back to 2018, it didn't have great interest then. And this is, in theory, a lot worse job now than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think
because of the periphery.
And I think most coaches, unless they had a personal relationship with him, would be really turned off by the AD telling him, hey, by the way, you got to keep this guy on your staff. I mean, they all have their guys. They all, want to build their own staff. And I just think that would make this one a little unattractive unless somebody had a pre-existing relationship. When you're talking about, no offense to Kevin Steele, I think he's very sound, but how would a coach feel about working alongside a guy that looks like he worked to get his last boss fired to get that job and was a finalist for this job the last time it was open?
Well, and here's the thing too. I mean, I don't know Kevin Steele, but he's an old school football coach who's done the business for a long time. I don't know if Kevin Steele wants to work somewhere where he's being his ball or his coach, the head coach, is being forced to keep him. I just think he'll walk away. I mean, he's financially secure. I mean, Auburn's got to pay him,
Yeah,
and if it
regardless.
doesn't fit, I mean, he just walk away. I mean, and I could totally see that. I don't think he wants to be anybody's quote charity or being made, kept. You got to keep this guy. I mean, if Kevin Steele's not comfortable with whoever the head coach is, I think Kevin Steele's more than comfortable with himself, just walking away and not trying to hang around. So we'll see. All right, the next question: if Kevin Steele is named head coach, what offensive coordinators do you believe he would target? I don't know who he would target, but I've said this, Rob. I know who I would target. I'd call Jeff Lebby at Ole Miss. I think
Yeah.
I think Jeremy Pruitt should have hired him 2 years ago.
I concur. I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's who he would target. And furthermore, I do think that, I would continue to be told like Levy's gettable. He just signed a new 2-year deal at Ole Miss, but I'm told, he's content, but I ain't gonna say he's just like locked in over there and you can't go get him. So I think that, gettable, and let's face it, that's the kind of offense that Tennessee fans would love to see, whoever, Caden Salter, Hendon Hooker, whoever, making plays in next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody wants that.
I continue to go back. If you go with the Kevin Steele route, you've got to build around him with guys like Jeff Lebby, Rodney Garner, so on and so forth. Guys that, okay, they're recruiters, they're ball, they can draw up ball plays, guys that can get, the fan base excited, around Kevin Steele.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be a rock star staff to get some people intrigued and excited about where things are going. Do you think that the guys entering the portal hurts Steele's leverage for the head coaching position? Do you think if the university were to go after a guy like Chadwell or Lane still being DC already, Garner more than likely being here, would be a deal breaker? It seems like it would be a good fit for both those guys on those two staffs. We talked about the last question, so let's get to the first question here. Do you think that the guys entering the portal hurt Steele's leverage for the job? I don't think so, because I think Kevin Steele's had 3 days to try to talk him out of going into the portal. And I think they were going into the portal because Jeremy Pruitt is no longer here and they don't know who their position coaches are. I don't think that's Kevin Steele's fault. So I don't think you should hold him accountable for that like he did something wrong, Rob. I just don't see how you can place that out at him.
No, I'm with you totally. 100% agree. He didn't have any relationships with these guys. It's not like they turned on him or were soured on him. They're just understandably looking for a fresh start with the way things have worked out here.
Athletic directors are almost always tied to who they hire as a head football coach. Do you think potential athletic directors how do you think they will feel about still hiring assistant coaches? From an outsider's perspective, it seems that setting him up to be the hire. If I were coming as an athletic director, I wouldn't want my hire made for me. Excuse me. Sorry about that. He's not hired anybody yet. And I don't know that he will hire anybody. And if he does hire somebody, I think it may just be one coach. I don't know that he's going to go fill out the entire staff. And if the chancellor's going as fast as she would like to go in this search, from what we're told, and would like to have something done as early as this weekend, I don't know if anybody's hired before the weekend. So that may not even be a factor, or may not even be a question at all when it's all said. When it's all said and done, I know if he does make some hires, what it looks like. But until that happens, I don't know, and it may not happen before an AD is actually in place here. So we'll see what the next couple of days bring. Rumors that
I think it is important as the potential of bringing in a Rodney Garner or somebody else is getting a recruiting staff. They have nobody like in the recruiting department. What I mean by that, not like a staff, coach they can recruit. Like they have no recruiting department. Like they all got let go. So like they have no help, and let's face it, Coach Steele right now is in a spot where, he's relying solely on assistant coaches. A lot of those assistant coaches are spending most of their days trying to keep team members out of the portal. So, it's easy to fall behind, and he's, 3 men down. So, in my mind, as big of, bringing in a guy like Rodney Garner is bringing in some competent people to help run the recruiting department and stabilize that area.
I'm not taking that job if I'm a recruiting guy.
I mean, I don't see how you stabilize anything right now. I mean, it's just what it is, which is chaos. I mean,
I'm saying if you can make a hire.
I'm just saying those guys aren't contract people for the most part, unless you're going to change how that's done. I'm not coming to work here knowing that the guy I'm coming to work to may or may not be here in 2 weeks, 6 months, 6 weeks, might be on staff, might not be on staff. I think that's hard to get somebody to agree to take that job. I understand your point, Austin, and I agree with you that recruiting is a mess because you don't have anybody in that office right now. I just don't know who would take a job to join the staff.
You also don't have a vision to sell. I mean, what are you going to sell to recruits right now? I mean, it's an impossible situation. And to your point, Brett, about not coming, just about any head coach is going to have a young kid, that's been a GA or, his defensive quality control guy that he is going to bring with him and put in that job almost invariably.
Yeah, I agree that they got to get it fixed, but I just don't know that you can get it fixed until you've got a direction with who's going to be on your staff, and what your head coaching situation is going to look like. Rumors that some boosters are interested in Gundy. Care to comment? Gundy's name always shows up. I don't think Gundy's coming to Tennessee. He's played them the last 2 times. If I were in charge of this search, I would not pick up the phone and call Mike Gundy and say, "Hey, do you want to have a cup of coffee?" They've had that cup of coffee twice.
Can you shake loose in Dallas?
If I were in charge of the search, I would tell Mike Gundy, "Hey, meet me in Dallas," and then have the bartender leave him a little note and said, "Kiss my ass," and then not show up. That's what I would do.
He's certainly played him twice. I don't know that you go down. I wouldn't go down that road a third time. Is there any correlation between the players that left and the allegations that money's being given out to players? And how would you compare Monday to Schiano's Sunday? I don't know of any correlation because I don't know what the money thing looks like in the investigation. Okay, I don't know. Do I think there's some money stuff as a part of this investigation? Yeah, I think there is, but I don't have any idea how specific anything's going to be or what specifically is going to be done. Money might be paying for a hotel room. I don't know what money
buying
means.
A meal.
Yeah, buying a meal. I don't know what money means.
The old proverbial drop a bag. I don't think this is what this is about. I think most of this is, it's all stuff that, again, it's pretty frequent in college football. It just so happens that Tennessee's got the goods on their own program. And now the NCAA does.
Rob, Monday, Schiano Sunday to Philip Fulmer departure Monday.
I don't think it's close. I think Schiano Sunday was a much, much wilder ride. I mean, you had a guy that, I don't think any of us were surprised that Jeremy Pruitt got fired. I mean, the surprising thing was the magnitude, the amount of people that were allegedly involved that just made it look, incredibly widespread and corrupt behind the scenes where you're letting go that many people, multiple on-field coaches, multiple behind-the-scenes guys. Now, I thought Schiano Sunday was wild, and that it, ended up with, not only a guy with a signed memorandum of understanding not getting the job, but also the sitting athletic director, and then later on the chancellor losing their jobs. Well,
and we had a number of different things on that Sunday. Whereas Monday, it was more telegraphed than Schiano. Schiano Sunday was not telegraphed at all.
Yeah, it was definitely a different wild ride, and it was such a moving target on Sunday as to what was going to happen. Whereas Monday was more, okay, by lunchtime he's done. Schiano Sunday finished Sunday night. There was still talk Sunday evening that night that John Curry was going to come make a statement publicly, and he never did. And there was a whole lot. There was a lot more juice to Schiano Sunday than Monday was. All right, who's your favorite to be the AD? And Bob Stoops, would Tennessee try and lure him in? I don't think Bob Stoops got any desire to come be a part of a rebuild project, college football. So no, not that one.
NCAA violations.
Yeah. All right. Favorite to be the AD. I don't know that there is a favorite. I think this search is pretty interesting. And I'll jump that way, in this question from the standpoint of, I think that Chancellor Plowman is doing her best to try to get a big name, an established person somewhere, swinging for the fences, if you will, for a quote splash hire. I don't know if anything will happen there. I think it's interesting that I don't feel any traction with Mark Ingram. I don't think they've done anything there with that candidate. Todd Stewart, who's at Western Kentucky, I don't think he's heard from anybody with Parker or the search firm at all. And then John Gilbert was the name everybody, Rob, assumed was going to be at the head of the list, but it just doesn't seem like there's as much traction with him right now as there was on Monday. And you got to wonder if the Dave Hart stuff, guys, and his affiliation with Dave Hart and some of the issues Dave Hart had at Tennessee is not working against John Gilbert in this process, in this search.
Yeah, I was told on Monday night by someone close to the situation that John Gilbert he'd be in the mix, but it was a long way from being a slam dunk. And I mean, they might get there eventually, but I don't think it doesn't sound like he's a top tier target from the way things feel today.
No, it feels like a lot of the steam has come out of Gilbert. Now, that's not to say that he can't get rejuvenated, but it definitely feels like the train is still at the station and is definitely not, barreling down the tracks.
Well, and again, I think I wonder if there's a little bit of guilt by association there. I mean, obviously there's the Donnie Tyndall thing that everybody knows about. There was the unrest with the Lady Vol front, and I don't think John Gilbert should be lumped into that because I think that was a Dave Hart fight, even though Gilbert was certainly involved in a lot of those conversations on campus. Under Dave Hart's watch, there was some Title IX issues as well, and you just wonder if some of those things that John Gilbert gets lumped into that administration and that time frame of the administration, if that works against him with some people. I don't know, but you wonder if that. If there's some baggage there that follows him, that's probably not fair, but because he worked on the Dave Hart staff, if that works against him. So we'll see. I think, again, the timeline on this, everybody wants to know about the timeline. I think Chancellor Plowman wants to go fast with the AD search if she can get it done. Once the AD search is done, I think she's going to turn it over to the AD and say, go find a football coach. I don't think she's going to be very hands-on in the football coach. She's going to want to know. I'm not saying she's not going to want to interview or talk to the finalist and give the final say on that, because I think she does. But I think she has made it clear to me that once she gets the AD in place, then it's the AD running the athletic department, and they come to her whenever they need to tell her something, and she's not going to be hands-on traveling around the country talking to candidates or anything like that. That's the impression I get from people I talked to, and based on her comments that she made in the press conference, and they have continued with her and Randy Boyd both about wanting an AD in place first, regardless of how that impacts the football program currently right now. And I think it is impacting the program right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
They're in a shell right now, Hubs. I mean, I thought my analysis was pretty spot on, and to pat myself on the back. I'm not a big column writer, but I told Hubs, my little line about the fact that everybody left that part of the football programs and they're Rob shoveling water from a sinking ship with a thimble is kind of the truth. I mean, every time something happens, there's somebody else going in the portal. There's a recruit not coming. There's this so on and so forth. I mean, it's just one hit after another. And, it's like the episode of Vegas Vacation when Clark's at the Hoover Dam and the water pops through the hole and he puts the gum in it. Then here comes another one. You can't plug up all the holes.
Yep. And Rob, they just don't have an answer to anything. They can't answer anybody's question right now. I mean, and a player's question, they just don't have an answer for them at this point in time.
A player's question, a recruit's question, a parent's question. I mean, it's a bad scene right now.
When you think about what, and when somebody put this to me on Wednesday, and I was like, when you really think about it, that's so true. For the last 10 months, these kids, or at least the last 6 or 7 months, these kids have been poked and prodded with 3 tests a week. Then they get to the end of the season, which ends a week before Christmas. Here comes the allegations out. And then for a month, they're sitting there reading everything on social media and everything that's out there about this and that, and Jeremy Pruitt, yada, 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 and all the speculation about whether he's going to lose his job. And now they're sitting in another state of limbo, because they've got to hire an AD before they hire a football coach. So, like, if you're an offensive lineman, you don't have an offensive line coach. You're hearing from all these other schools, and they do have offensive line coaches. Like, it's just a lot for these kids to have went through, and I really believe that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Will Tennessee self-impose penalties when the internal investigation is formally complete?
I would say so.
I would think yes, and hope that they're accepted.
Yeah, and hope that they're accepted and that it's not any worse. And again, I think the biggest concern right now would be scholarship reductions. I know everybody, talks about postseason bowl bans, and that's not a good look in recruiting. That's not a good look, with your fan base and everything else. But for the health of your program, the biggest concern is scholarship reductions, and how big would you potentially get hit there? I'll be curious to see what Tennessee's self-imposed number is to try to help them stave off any other further penalties.
Yeah, I would almost guarantee postseason ban, wouldn't you? I mean, who cares about missing a Liberty Bowl next year? I mean, what's the ceiling for this team?
If Tennessee could get away with a 1-year postseason ban instead of 2, I think it all depends on the number of scholarships you lose, Brent. If you're talking 2 a year for 3 years, so 6 total, and you're only signing 23 instead of 25, I think that does not hurt as bad, because I think the stigma that comes with a 2-year bowl ban really hurts the football program. I really think that. I really think that it's hard to recruit to Tennessee if there's a multi-year bowl ban for those couple of years.
Well, if you had a multi-year bowl ban for the class of 22, it would affect them 1 year. If you had a 2-year bowl ban, it would affect the class of 22 1 season. Their freshman year, it would affect them. I mean, look,
I think you're thinking of it as a 45-year-old man, and I agree with you, as a 37-year-old man. Like, it 2 years goes by like that, lickety split. But for kids, they think that 2 years is an eternity.
Well, I think, but it doesn't affect the high school kids in the 22 class. Year 1 doesn't bother him at all.
It's going to affect your current roster,
right? Which is being depleted rapidly as you go right now. I mean, with your roster, are you going to be eligible for a bowl next year? What's the roster look like? Are you going to be a potentially bowl team next year? I don't know. I mean,
we've all thought this, but we haven't mentioned on the podcast the timetable for when the sanctions are going to be announced. I mean, don't you think a potential coach is going to want to know what he's walking into? He's not going to want to come in blind and wonder if there's going to be a 2-year bowl ban. Wondering how many scholarship reductions there are going to be. I think that could really affect the timetable of this thing, and probably helps Kevin Steele.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I would say a coach is much more worried about the scholarship reductions than he is the number of postseason bans, or the season. And I get that it works against you in recruiting. I just think for the overall health of your program and the long-term health of your program, that the scholarship reductions is so much of a bigger factor and a bigger thing to them than the bowl ban. Now, I think the bowl ban is harder to recruit to. And Lord, if Tennessee got away with losing 2 scholarships a year for 3 years or 4 years,
I think that's optimistic.
In a single season bowl game, then yeah. But I just don't think that's very realistic when you look at kind of where. Based on what we saw at Mississippi State, based on what we've seen at some other places. So, we'll see what that looks like moving forward. But Tennessee, to answer the guy's question, Tennessee's definitely going to impose some self-imposed penalty. All right, let's move on to the next question here. Is Lane Kiffin a real possibility?
I mean, I don't see it based off what I'm hearing, but I could be wrong.
I'd have to see it to believe it, but I honestly would not be surprised. Like, wouldn't be shocked. Like, I don't think it would happen, but I don't think that I would just totally just close the door on it and lock it.
Well, I mean, let me be clear. I would be fine with Lane Kiffin. I would think that would be, a solid hire. I just don't think it happens.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it happened, but I'm with you, Austin. I mean, right now you're not ruling anything out from. Listen, I'm not ruling anything out from Tennessee hiring a big name Power Five AD to hiring a guy like Scott Carter from ETSU or something like that. I mean, I think at this point anything could potentially be on the table with Tennessee when it's all said and done. All right. Um, Pride wants to know, did Steele legitimately have Levy lined up to be his OC had he gotten the Auburn job? Steele and Gilbert spent a couple of years ago to Alabama. Any idea what the relationship is like? Steele is 62. Do you believe he came to Tennessee to finish his career, whether it's as a head coach or an assistant coach? I'm going to start with 3. I do think he came to Tennessee to go to the finish line. I think he's at a point in his career that he's not on the quest, to be a head coach just anywhere in the country. Would he, as an assistant coach here, would he go be a head coach in the SEC somewhere else? Maybe, but at his age, I think that he probably had in the back of his mind, I'm going to come to Tennessee, fix Tennessee, and that's probably enough for me.
I'll take 1. Yes, I do believe he was going to hire Jeff Levy had he got the Auburn job. If he gets this job, I think Levy would be a target. And on the offensive line, I think former Vol assistant, and former Vol assistant and offensive line coach Steve Marshall would be the target to coach offensive line as a real candidate, because he just lost his job with the Miami Dolphins, and veteran coaches normally do well coaching offensive line, right, Brent?
A lot of head coaches want a veteran guy as their offensive line coach. They don't worry about recruiting nearly as much at that position as they do some other positions. Sam Pittman was obviously the exception as a great recruiter and an offensive line coach. But yeah, I think a coach is looking for more of a fundamental technician guy there at that coaching position than they are a recruiter. Steele and Gilbert know each other. I think they got along fine and well at Alabama. And that's kind of where that is. Let's see here. We've talked about Steele staying on as a DC. This poster wants to know, would Jay Graham stay? Do you think Jay Graham's going to ultimately end up being here?
Jay Graham's had multiple opportunities to leave Tennessee in the last month. That's not something he would advertise, but he's had multiple opportunities, a couple of them in this league, and he's still here. So yeah, he wants to be here. Now, could that change? Sure, it could. I mean, he wanted to stay here in 2012, and then Butch came in, and he didn't feel like he meshed with the Cincinnati staff, so he took Randy's call from Florida State and headed down to Tallahassee. So
hot move, Jay. Hot move in hindsight.
Yeah, he wants to be here. Period.
And I think he'd be attractive to most head coaches. Don't you? I think he's got a strong track record.
Yeah, I think he absolutely does. All right, let's go to the next one. Harrison Bailey's dad said that they came to play for Pruitt. Do you have any insight on his status with the program? Who else could you see transferring? Austin, was today the big run? I'm not saying nobody else is going to jump in the portal, but do you think now it's more like people are going to wait till the end of the spring semester and go through spring practice?
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. I think you still have to watch the next couple of days. Keyshawn Lawrence is a name that I've continued to hear, but, he's not winning yet. Darnell Wright's another name that, I think Tennessee's been able to stave that off. And, he's going to go through spring and see where we are.
Do we know if those kids went to class today? And does it matter? Or how weird is it? Maybe if you just is it a loophole if you just joined a Zoom as opposed to walked in a classroom?
Well,
I thought about that too. Do you not have to think about that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I don't know how many of those guys are running through the complex, going and doing stuff like that. They're not yet started in their full, postseason or off-season stuff. It's getting ready to get cranked up and everything as guys move back in this week. So, I think if you're considering going into the portal, and you're going to go now, you better know where you're at because your eligibility is on the line. You can't just take the semester off. Okay. You got to have a place to go, and the window's getting small on that because schools are starting around the country. And so guys who went into the portal today, if they're going to go now, they got to go. They can't decide 10 days from now what school they're going to go to.
To quote Apollo 13, the Earth's getting big in the window.
It is certainly getting big in the window, and we're quickly running out of time here.
AP, that's two movie references over. If you're sport at home.
He likes, but I use that Apollo 13. He stole that one from me. I'm going to take credit from that because I've referenced that one several times, right, AP? No?
Vegas Vacation.
You referenced Apollo 13. I referenced the Earth's getting big in the window.
Vegas Vacation was a pretty deep pool, though.
It was a pretty deep pool. I mean, Clark sticking his finger in the Hoover Dam was not something I thought was going to be mentioned on the podcast tonight or today, but it certainly is. All right, if signees are let out of their letter of intent, can Tennessee take more transfers? Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely they can. And that's how you would try to build this roster back up. Would another SEC school end up handicapping their own program in a matter that it looks like Tennessee has been doing it? Rob, this is you, right?
Maybe Vandy.
They certainly hadn't done it at LSU.
Or, I could see maybe Auburn being cold-blooded enough to do it if they could have done this and avoided paying Gus $22 million. I could see Auburn going that way.
Yeah, story today is that one donor wrote the big lump sum check to Gus Malzahn. How about
War damn Eagle.
Does the firm that Tennessee hire assess more than just searching out coaches? In other words, do they give options like if you want to pack your stadium out, high ceiling chance of winning, et cetera? No, how a search firm works is they vet out candidates. They find out if a candidate has interest, they vet out whether or not they have issues or something in their past so that you don't get caught blindsided a la Donnie Tyndall, the way Tennessee did when they didn't use a search firm. But they're not recommending, hey, here's who you should hire because he's the best fit, because he's going to put butts in the stands, or he's the most dynamic, or he's the most exciting. That's not the role of a search firm or anything like that. Let's see here. We get to maybe a couple more out the gate. Will the NCAA conduct any additional investigation? Seems like we mitigated that by including them in the interviews. I don't know that they're going to come set up shop here, but I don't know that they're not going to say, hey, we want to look into something else based on those interviews. I don't think that's completely out of the question, but I think Tennessee is very hopeful that including them the way they did, particularly the last 3 weeks, that they've handled the investigation for the NCAA and that they can self-report, and then a punishment goes from there rather than the NCAA coming to town. So I don't anticipate the NCAA coming to town and doing any more digging, but you never know. Crazier things have certainly happened. So we will see from there. Rodney Gardner was rumored to have signed an MOU last week. Is he coming? He has not signed an MOU. Might come, but they got to work through some contract stuff if that's going to happen. And we'll see how that goes over the course of the coming days. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Volquest.com podcast. I know we didn't get to all the questions tonight, but I'll jump in there and answer a few that we did not get to in this edition of the podcast, brought to you by our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Remember, check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Or you can give them a buzz at 865-299-2290 for all of your heating and air needs. They'll take care of you on any maintenance, service plans, whatever you need. They'll take great care of you. Don't forget their January special on that unit for the small rooms and bonus rooms, garages, things like that. It's all at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.